Good evening, Crimson Tide Nation, and welcome to the Alabama-Oklahoma postgame show right here, simulcast on Alabama at the Voice of College Football, Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football, and the Voice of College Football X account from yours truly, Jackson Johnson. And I got my partner in crime, Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports, where he is making sure he's staying sane, or at least trying to, from Indiana having a bad day and Alabama having a bad day. And I can tell you right now, the only way to go from being down is the way to go is up. How you doing today, good buddy?
I'm doing all right, man. It was a crazy day of football, and I think that a day like this shows that you really just can't expect your team to win. You can't. I think a day like this should prove that even if your team is better than that other team, it does not mean you're going to win. It does not mean that you're going to play better than that other team. Because we saw a ton of upsets today. A&M losing to Auburn, Ole Miss going down to Florida, Alabama going down to Oklahoma. All of these teams that lost are better than the teams that they lost to, but they didn't play better. Now, A&M Auburn, dogfight game, tons of crazy calls, went down to the wire. But we can't say anything about Alabama's performance other than that it was an F. It was an F performance. They played terrible. I mean, Indiana did not play as bad as Alabama. Indiana's performance was not an F. It's probably a C at worst. It was a C. They tried. They competed. A couple bad bounces, blew the game out of proportion. Alabama played terrible. 3 picks from Milroe. The pick sixes. I mean, come on, man. Oklahoma didn't even do that much. I mean, it was basically just Jackson Arnold running all over him and the Oklahoma running back running all over him. And Bama just couldn't stop it. To me, I mean, Alabama's effort, and we said all week, I know I did, you kind of mentioned it as well, but we said on Thursday on the call-in show, I said Alabama is going to win this game as long as they show up. As long as they show up to Norman and play even a C or a better game. Well, they played like they failed, an absolute F. It's not even a D. Again, it was a terrible performance and completely, just honestly, unexpected because they have been inconsistent this season. And I know you agree with this as well, Jackson. We've talked all year about how inconsistent that they've been, but this was the worst performance they've had all season. They didn't even play this bad against Vanderbilt. And plus, they recently have been playing better, like the LSU game, like the Missouri game, like the Mercer game. It's Mercer, but still, those games, it seemed like a trend that they were going in the right direction. Well, all that's out the window. And now their playoff hopes are done. It's over. Like people are going to say, oh, well, it's Bama. They'll still. No, they do not have a shot to make the playoff. It's over. It's done with 3 losses, and they deserve to be. It's just the lack of effort is what is mind-boggling to me. I mean, you cannot show up and play any better than that. It's crazy.
True. But you know what has a shot to shoot up sales on Black Friday and on Christmas, especially for the college football fan in your life? The disputed national champions, college football's 1990s historical reset, written by Mark Rogers himself, where you'll learn what happened during the 90s, how the decade changed the sport, why the championship results should be questioned, how to critically think through the scenarios to appreciate the accomplishments of teams that were not recognized as champions. This book provides an in-depth analysis of the changes, controversies, outcomes that defined a decade of college football. Grab your copy now.
Absolutely. Definitely, we're going to want to grab a copy of Mark's book. It's definitely going to be a great read. And like this comment right here from Stan says, agree that we beat Bama on an off night for them, but our defense still played great. Can't take anything away from them. Absolutely. I agree. Oklahoma's defense played absolutely fantastic. They were physical. They were flying all over the field. But this is where my problem with football teams in college football right now is going on with all these upsets that are happening. I'm sure people have noticed. There's no way that you can. If you're a college football fan, even if you only watch one team, you're going to notice sometimes your team doesn't play with maximum effort. It's not feasible. You're not going to get peak performance from your team every game. But this season, though, The amount of inconsistent effort from week to week by every football team in college football, basically, that I've watched anyway. I've watched a ton of football. I've seen a ton of football teams this year. And every week that I flip on a team, it's just a different result of effort. That's what I don't understand. I don't understand how one week Alabama can go to LSU and just blow the complete doors off them. I don't care how bad LSU is. Just blow the doors off of them and look like the best team in college football, and then go out against Oklahoma and not even try, because that's what that was. They didn't even try at all, man. And that's the thing. I'm seeing it not just with Bama, but with Indiana. I can't say that. They've played hard every game for basically the most part. I mean, there's been a couple moments, but there's just basically most college football teams this year. It's inconsistent effort. Is it an NIL thing? What is it? I don't know what it is. Is it coaching? Is it a coaching problem, or like coaches, not being tough enough, or what? Or like with the way players are, where I'm just going to bolt to another program if I don't like the coach or I don't like something that's said to me, I can go to another program. Is it just that nature? Because, like I said, effort is so inconsistent, and I don't know if any coach at this point right now can get consistent effort out of a team like your Bob Knights in the past at Indiana basketball, or even Nick Saban more recently with Alabama football. You're not seeing consistent play. You're not. Even Georgia with Kirby, as great as Coach Kirby Smart, as people say, his team's been inconsistent this year. Do you see that as a current recurring trend, Jackson? Am I crazy in what I'm saying? Or do you think that, like, looking at this season, that you've seen more inconsistent play than ever before all across the board from every team?
It's been a lot. It's just up and down like a stock market. Mm-hmm. It's like one week we're great against Georgia. Next week we were a disaster against Vandy. Barely got by against South Carolina. Lost to Tennessee. Smacked Missouri. Smacked LSU, smacked Mercer, because, we're supposed to. And we only scored 3 points against Oklahoma.
And this comment right here from Stan is exactly true. And basically what I'm saying. Saban quit partly because how the college game has changed. It's changed because I just don't think in this modern day of college football, unless things change for the better, that we're going to be seeing consistent play ever again, all across the board, for the most part. Not just have a bad game. You can have a bad game. Everybody has a bad game. You can be a great quarterback and just have an off night, couple picks, whatever. But it's lack of effort. Like, all I wanted to see from Alabama, once things started to turn south, were they going to dig their heels, and were they going to fight back at Oklahoma and say, you know what, our playoff chances are on the line. This is a 12-team playoff. We could still get in if we just went out. Oklahoma's not that good of a football team, but they punched us in the mouth. Let's fight back. Did you ever see that at any point in the game? All I saw was just a bunch of dejected guys. Like they just gave up, or like, dude, the game ain't even over yet. And that's what I'm seeing, though. I don't understand it, though. I don't know if it's an NIL problem. I don't know if it's a discipline problem. I don't know. But every team is inconsistent. Georgia, like, people coming into this season, like, Georgia's the new dynasty. They're the new top dog in college football. And then that Kentucky game happened. And when I kind of excused it because I was like, well, they had the Missouri game, the Kent State game before, whatever. But then the Mississippi State game. And then the Alabama game, and half that game, right? They played great, but half was poor, and Bama the same way. It's just all over the place. It doesn't seem normal. It doesn't seem normal with the effort level. It's just all over the place. I'm just curious to see if it's going to get any better anytime soon, or if this is just going to continue to be a problem. Because if that's the case, how can you judge coaches then? Like I was watching the A&M Auburn game, and people are now saying, like, oh, Hugh Freeze, he's turning Auburn around. He's getting the fan base, it's one win. Okay, they could play Alabama next week and lose by 50. All right, and you're saying you're saying Hugh Freeze needs to be fired again. I mean, we've gone from Billy Napier needs to be fired, no chance, to he saved his job, to, oh, he's fired again, to now he saved his job again. You see what I'm saying? Like,
we went that way as well with Neil Brown. And I'm just like, I base things off of a year by year basis. I don't go by a week by week basis. I go by year by year. I mean, even when, like, for example, when I was saying, when I've been saying all year and throughout last year that I don't think Cincinnati, like, for example, Cincinnati with Scott Satterfield, I don't think they're going to get what they're hoping for with this guy. And when Cincinnati was on a huge winning streak, they're like, "Oh, Cincinnati's going to do great with Scott Satterfield." Yeah, but he's not going to take them to heights where Luke Fickell had him or Brian Kelly had him. He's not. And if they're hoping for that, he's not. It's just not going to happen. But that's just an example of perception, as you've stated.
Yeah, I agree with you 110% on the Scott Satterfield situation. I mean, you could flip it to the flip side with Dave Aranda. Oh, he's done. He's history.
Mm-hmm.
And now, he saved his job. And it's just impossible to judge coaches these days, in my opinion. It's just impossible, especially if you're going week by week. Because you can say all day long that, like Kalen DeBoer, it's on him. He didn't get his team ready to play. Okay. I mean, yeah, it is his job to get his team ready to play, and you got a game plan and stuff. But at the same time, don't the players have to want to win too and game play? Like, they got to do their own work, during the week to get ready.
True.
I mean, the coach matters. He does. Like, if you have a terrible coach, there are terrible coaches. Don't get me wrong. There are really, really bad coaches, and they get fired eventually, no matter how good of talent they have, if they just aren't good. And they don't get the maximum amount of players. Like again, people have said with Mike Woodson now at Indiana basketball for years that, Indiana's got talent in basketball, but Mike Woodson just doesn't get enough out of these players. And he is just, it's just not good enough. Well, that might be true. I think in basketball, it's definitely more true because basketball is more of a developmental sport when it comes to singular guys. You're talking about like 5 starters on the court, right? And your bench kind of matters. But when it comes to football, it's a lot more than just the coach, right? You got all the positional coaches. You've got tight ends coach. You got safeties coach. It's not all on the head coach. It's all these positional coaches, all of these players. There's a lot more people that have a lot more responsibility. So can we just assume that tonight Nick Saban, not Nick Saban, but like, that's another thing. If Nick Saban was the coach, right? Alabama would have.
I know, right?
That. It's like, yeah, they probably would. They probably would have for sure. But at the same time, like Stan said, Saban left the game because the way college game has changed. It would be different now. Everything's different. You can't be the same way that you were back in 2005 with players, or they're going to transfer. But can we just say that, Kalen DeBoer and the assistant coaches just did not get the players ready for this game? It's all on them because everybody's blaming DeBoer. It's DeBoer's fault. Well, what I saw is Jalen Milroe play the worst game of his career too. So is that DeBoer's fault? Is it the quarterback's coach's fault? Is it the offensive coordinator's fault? Or is it just Milroe's fault? Or is it the O-line's fault? Or is it all their fault? See, who can we blame? I blame effort. And maybe that does go with the coach. Maybe the coaches didn't, prepare them enough. But how can we just all blame the coaches, really? Like can we really, say now that Billy Napier is a better coach now, that Ole Miss lost to Florida. Florida got a couple upset wins versus earlier in the season when people were saying Billy Napier was trash. I mean, what's the difference? The difference is that DJ Lagway's come in and has brought life to the team.
Yeah, because I honestly, because I know I mentioned on the West Virginia postgame show at one point when Frank and Coach Chris and I were talking a little bit about Florida, I mentioned had it not been for DJ Lagway, I don't think
Napier's
we'd be
gone.
Yeah, he's a damn man. He's gone. He's gone at this point.
And the funny thing about it is that I said that at the beginning of the season, literally, that in my opinion, the only way Florida has any shot of having a decent season and Billy Napier saving his job is if DJ Lagway comes in for Graham Mertz and plays well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what happened. So I did peg that right. I've like everybody else have a ton of bad takes, like picking Bama to win this game. and a ton of
I
bad
think a
takes.
lot of people had
But
that
I
bad take.
pegged the Lagway thing right because Graham Mertz wasn't getting it done. And when Lagway went down against Georgia and we thought he was done for the year, I'm like, yeah, Napier's done. They're going to get rid of him. Well, Lagway comes back. He miraculously gets better. And he's led Florida to a couple big victories over LSU and over Ole Miss. And suddenly Billy Napier's safe. But is he a better coach now? No, I don't think he is. He's the same guy he was before. It's just the one guy that he had to have hit and had to have stay healthy to turn the season around did in Lagway. That was his last chance.
One guy that doesn't get any flack for losing in the big games as a big game coach is Lane Kiffin, because I know like a lot of people give James Franklin flack, but they never give Lane Kiffin flack.
You know why they don't, Jackson? The reason that they don't is
nobody
because
really expects Ole Miss.
Yes,
Yeah,
Penn State when they had Paterno, and they won all those games back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, whatever, before they tore a statue down, all that after his coaching career was over and all that, and he died.
Right.
All that junk. Like Penn State's had a history being good, right? So like,
right.
oh, Franklin, you're at Penn State. You're like Michigan and Ohio State, basically. You should win. Ole Miss before Lane Kiffin never had a 10-win season.
Mm-hmm.
Never. First 10-win season they ever had was with Lane Kiffin a couple years ago or whatever. So that's why Lane Kiffin's expectations are a lot lower. And that's why it's smarter for him to stay at Ole Miss than it is for him to go to Auburn or Florida, where he would get fired in a heartbeat. Even though his chances of winning a national title at Ole Miss are almost impossible. Could he? Maybe. But when he lost Judkins to Ohio State in the offseason, I'm like, they're not winning a title. And I know people are like, well, it's one player and Judkins is replaceable. Is he? For Ole Miss, he wasn't, because the run game is not the best. It's all right, but he was the missing piece to give them any chance. I don't think they would have won a title, obviously, because I know some people are going to say, oh, Jeffrey's suggesting they were going to win a title. No, I'm not. I'm saying they would have had a chance. They didn't have a chance. They've lost 3 games this year because they're just a very solid program that as long as Lane Kiffin's there, they're going to win games. He kind of feels like Cignetti right now at IU. Cignetti's never going to win a national championship in Indiana, but as long as he's at Indiana, he's going to win games. They're going to win games, but he's not going to win many big games. Why? Because Indiana's not there. They're not at Ohio State's level. They can't recruit that well. I mean, even if they go 8-4 every year, they're not going to recruit that well. Maybe they can knock off Penn State every now and then. They're not going to knock off Ohio State most years. And even Michigan, if they get their act together. The only reason they beat Michigan this year is because Michigan didn't have a quarterback. But guess what? They got that problem fixed by signing Underwood from LSU for like a gazillion dollars. They got him, with some $20 billion guy that's giving money to the program, even though he's not even an alum. Did you notice that? That was hilarious. He's not even an alum at Michigan, has no ties to Michigan, but he gets quarterback. And see, why did Michigan want quarterback so bad? Because their quarterback play was garbage this year and gave them no chance to win big games. I mean, they would have beat Indiana if they had even Cam Ward. I know people are saying, oh, they wouldn't. Yes, they would. Michigan is a good team. They have tons of talent, and they've got tons of money. They're almost up there now with Ohio State. They put tons of money into that program to get guys like Underwood. But this year, they didn't have a quarterback because they didn't get one. So, I mean, it's just the way it works. If you don't have the money, you're not going to win at the highest level of the sport. That's why people are mad at DeBoer or in Alabama right now, because Bama's got the money. They got the players. And you're following Saban, and you just did that. That's an effort problem because Bama had the better football team. But, yeah, I mean, like, Indiana's not supposed to beat Ohio State. I mean, 5 stars versus 0 stars for a reason. And the thing is if Ohio State had no effort, like Alabama showcased tonight, Indiana could have won, but Ohio State played good. They showed effort. It's not that hard to win a game when you're uber talented as long as you show up. You just got to show up.
Yeah, and it's had an impact on the SC title race because it's looking like we're going to see Georgia versus the winner of Texas A&M.
I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card at the beginning of the season. I mean,
maybe Georgia, Texas, but not
Georgia, Texas, but I mean, Alabama was in there. Like, people thought Alabama was going to be there. You know, I mean, Georgia, Texas was a decently likely scenario, but at the same time, Texas, a lot of people thought that they were going to struggle in the SEC. First year in the SEC, you know. And the thing is, they haven't even been great. I mean, they've been all right, but I mean, think about it. I mean, they've had a couple close calls themselves. I mean, they didn't play good against Arkansas. They didn't play good against Vanderbilt. And the thing is, the longer you look at Vanderbilt, the worse they look. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, Vandy's fine. But I told you Vandy wasn't all that because they don't have the players either. They got a quarterback. They got a QB, and they got an offensive coordinator. That's it. They don't have anything else. I mean, they beat Bama because Bama stunk that day. But, I mean, Vanderbilt wasn't going to be a threat in the SEC race. But Texas still almost lost to them. So, I don't know, man. I mean, yeah, you're right about Georgia, Texas. But, I mean, it's just still I will say this. Based off recent events, recent games, is that like that Georgia-Texas scenario wasn't likely a couple weeks ago. It was maybe at the beginning of the season, but it wasn't a couple weeks ago.
That's what we're discussing. What happened?
Bama fan, all the Bama fans that are here are blown away. And I don't blame you, Bama fan. I appreciate you for stopping by, but effort. That's all I keep saying. That's just all I keep going back to. They did not show enough effort. And honestly, Jackson, and I have the floor with this. I want to hear your thoughts on this, but how does this impact the Iron Bowl, for one? And do you even think Bama even shows up to that game? Do they have any pride? I mean, are they going to show up? Or are they just not going to care about that game either?
I really hope that we can show a lot of pride for the Iron Bowl next Saturday, because you can technically still be the best of Alabama if you win the Iron Bowl.
But will they? I mean, do you think they will? I know there's no way for us to know based off what I've said tonight about how we can't figure these teams out. 1 week they play good, 1 week they play bad. But do you think they show up? I have no idea.
It's 50-50.
I mean, what was most surprising about their performance tonight, other than effort? Because I keep saying that. But other than that, because there was none, what was just most surprising about their play? And how bad
our O-line wasn't there. We didn't do a good job. They didn't do a good job protecting Jalen Milroe.
Do you think it was more on the O-line, or do you think it was more on Milroe? I'm still 50-50 on that.
It's a little on everybody. Everybody on the team.
Because, I mean, Milroe was terrible, but I do agree that he wasn't protected either. He wasn't. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, is just Oklahoma, was that dominating? You know, I mean, like, was that the deal? Like, Oklahoma's D-line's just that good that, you know, Bama's offensive line couldn't handle it? I mean, Jalen Milroe had better protection against Georgia. Man, you can't even make that make sense.
I know, right?
I don't know. Bama fans, does somebody pay Bama? I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on. I mean, honestly, today has just been chaotic. I mean, this year feels like the 2007 season, like everybody keeps saying. It feels like the 2007 season, but it also doesn't feel like the 2007 season. It doesn't.
I think the only consistent team in all of college football basically has been Oregon. I mean,
they barely beat Wisconsin.
Like, yeah, but it's like they keep winning, but it's like I feel like they're going to be better in the playoffs than they are in the regular season. I mean, like the first half, they weren't really consistent, but when we see them in the big games, they're getting ready.
The thing is, I agree with you on the Oregon take. They've been, I guess, the most consistent, I guess, considering all the
not really anything to brag about.
No, it's not. It's not at all. Absolutely. But the thing is that, like you said, the end of the season, they weren't that good. One play could have changed that Buckeye game. One play. I mean, if they lose that game, it's a completely different story. I mean, just say you swap Oregon and Ohio State's result and say Ohio State's undefeated right now. Oh, Ohio State's been the most complete team. Well, they still didn't play good against Nebraska. So, I mean,
True.
even they had one game where they were terrible. And then, yeah, I mean, Oregon had Wisconsin and the Boise game. And even I don't know. I don't know. If Alabama doesn't show up next week, it's embarrassing the program. You're not wrong. I mean, but the thing is that this is a countrywide problem. It's not just an Alabama problem. Kirby Smart's the best coach in college football right now, according to probably everybody, based off of his accomplishments, based off how the team is currently doing. I mean, him and Dabo have the most cred for what they've done that are still coaching right now. But Kirby Smart has a better program. But even he cannot get his team to consistently play good week by week. In years past, this is what I'm saying about the difference between this year. I mean, I was 3 years old back in 2007. Okay, I did not see a lot of that 07 year. I've seen a lot of YouTube of it. I've seen a lot of clips of it. The thing that just feels different to me about this year and that year is that year it felt like a lot of the teams that were normally good just weren't. You know what I'm saying? Like they just weren't good. And then you had the fluky teams like Kansas. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like you got IU this year. Still don't think Indiana is a fluke. I mean, the schedule, I get it. It's not, I get it, but still. But you had the fluky team, but the teams that were normally good just didn't feel that good in 07. This year, with NIL and the portal and all these modern changes to college football, you feel like there's around 20 teams at least, or if you really want to put a broad stroke, lessen the broad stroke, 15 teams or so in college football that if they play good can look like the best team in college football. We've seen this among all these teams. Think about it, Jackson. At one point or another, you can say that Oregon has looked like the best team. Alabama's look like the best team. Georgia's look like the best team. Texas has looked like the best team. All these teams, Ohio State, Penn State, not really, but leading into the Ohio State game, if they win, then people would have said so. Indiana's been the most dominant until Michigan, Ohio State, the schedule. You just go down the list, man. I mean, like 10 to 12 to 15 teams that if they play A&M, even A&M, we've seen A&M at their best. When A&M's been at their best this year, they've been great. But then they have games like tonight or the South Carolina game. So I just think the problem with comparing this year to 2007 is that in 2007, it just didn't, unless I'm wrong, and people like you guys in chat that were, alive back in 2007. Like I was alive too, but like you guys that are older that really watched that season and know that season can say I'm wrong. But to me, just looking at that season today, the 07 season just doesn't feel like 2024 because it did not seem like a lot of those teams were good. I don't know if you agree, Jackson, but that's just my opinion. This year, I feel like there's around 15 really, really, really good teams. None of them are playing consistently good. That's the difference between this year and 2007.
I'm thinking maybe some of them are saving it up for the playoffs.
Well, see, that's the problem. Obama's saving it up for the playoff. Well, now you got no playoff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's a massive problem. I mean, it's different if you're undefeated. If Alabama was undefeated right now and then had this game. Okay. All right. But you got 2 losses. The thing is that the playoff being expanded makes it easier for you to make the playoff. Makes it easier for you to make the playoff. You can afford to slip up. You don't have to be perfect. It's almost like in the NFL where, you know what? We're 13-2, but you know what? We're not having a great game. Let's just pull the starters. Let's go to the playoff, with it. Well, you know what I'm saying? We've seen the NFL teams do that. Well, in college football, it's like, oh, well, I'm 10-0, and this is a tough game. We're kind of getting beat down. Let's just give up. I don't like seeing that. I prefer teams to fight till the end. I don't like seeing this give up junk, but we've seen that. But in Alabama's case, we've been saying all week and last week and the week before that, win out, you're in the playoff. Mm-hmm. What happened? I mean, did the message not get through? Kalen DeBoer on his message board, I'd be like, win out, we're in the playoffs, guys. Let's play hard and let's beat those Sooners. I mean, they had to know. I mean, you can't tell me those players didn't know that they had to win tonight.
No.
They had to win. I mean, there's no saving it for the playoff. You got to win to get in the playoff. Yeah. I agree with you on like Oregon. I mean, like Oregon, loses in the final week of the season. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. Like, they're still going to get in the playoff. But in the case of Bama, they had to win. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't.
Well, and I'm hoping we have a really good day on signing day, which is coming up soon. Early signing day, which is on December 4th on Wednesday.
Mm.
And the early signing period ends on December 6th, so Friday.
Mm.
And as of right now, we got the #1 recruiting class for 2025.
Mm.
And, of course, the next edition, well, the full-on signing day is February 5th. I'm hoping we have a really good day on that, but all I can think about is let's get through how we're feeling tonight. Let the 24 hours run through, and we trudge on to Auburn. That's all we can do.
The thing for me, and I agree 100% on what you said, Jackson. I mean, absolutely, just flush it down the drain. There's nothing we could do about it. But the thing for me is that, like I said before we came on, if Alabama had just played hard and somehow lost, I mean, I have a hard time being mad at that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you play a tough game, and Oklahoma just plays the game of their life. The game of their life, and Bama's giving it their all too, and they just somehow fall short. I'd be upset. I'd be like, man, I can't believe they blew that game. But I'd have been like, props to Oklahoma. And I still give props to Oklahoma. They played good, especially on defense, but I just can't get over how bad Alabama played and how it just didn't seem like they even tried half the time. And that's what bothers me. Because, like Austin said about the pride, and we're talking about the playoff, everything was there for Bama to care about this game. I mean, there's no reason not to. There's no reason not to show up. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, the thing is, funny enough, and I don't know if this has anything to do with it, remember how I told you Bama doesn't have a lot of bad blood with Oklahoma because they haven't played them that much. They're new rivals now. I mean, that shouldn't matter, though. If it was Nick Saban, I mean, he wouldn't have let that matter. I don't think maybe Kalen DeBoer would have let it matter either, but it didn't. Whatever he said didn't get through to the players. Players didn't get the memo or whatever. But if it's Bama Auburn, you would think Bama's gonna show up hard. If it's Bama LSU or Bama Tennessee, but Bama doesn't really have history with Oklahoma outside of a few really old time games that you've mentioned before.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, that shouldn't be a factor either. It shouldn't matter. Like, if Bama was playing Penn State in this game, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's Indiana. You got to show up, man. It doesn't matter if you have a history with them or not. It shouldn't be extra motivation at all. The motivation should have been enough that they had to win to get in the playoff. And that should have been motivation enough, and it wasn't.
Yeah. And tonight was the first time since 2011 where we didn't score a touchdown,
and I remember that 9-6 game against LSU. I remember that game. I was 7 years old. I remember watching it.
Yeah, so there's a stat that just pulled up.
Mm-hmm. I remember that game.
And this was the first home win versus a top 10 team since 2007 for the Oklahoma Sooners.
I mean, it just makes Bama look really bad. I mean, I know people are gonna be like, "Well, they were ranked 7th. They might not drop far." No, they're dropping far, man. I mean, they got murdered. They lost by 3 scores. There's no way they're not dropping it. Well, they're gonna have to get a new quarterback. I mean, I've asked this before, Jackson. Is Milroe? He's on his last year, right? He doesn't have any more eligible.
I believe so. Yeah, that's why they're talking about him being draft eligible.
Yeah, he's done. So, Ty Simpson or transfer. I mean, that's that's what you're looking at. That's the new day and age in college football. You don't have a quarterback, you got to get a portal guy.
Well, we've got Keelan Russell coming up in the 2025 recruiting class. So,
you don't really want to start a true freshman, though. I mean, you you can do it, I guess. I mean, some teams have done it and it's worked. I don't like doing it. I don't really prefer doing that. But if he's the best option, sure. I mean,
I mean, because like between him and Ty Simpson, I'm just like, let's give the kid a shot.
well, I mean, Ty Simpson hasn't really gotten a shot, but
Yeah.
in the few slim chances that he has had to play, he hasn't looked good.
Yeah.
So that's why people just think, well, Ty Simpson isn't it. But we don't really still know for sure either.
No.
But I mean, if I can't even say if I had to bet money on it, I don't think. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Ty Simpson could do decent, but yeah. And the thing is Arnold's not a true freshman. He's not a true freshman.
True.
He was there last year. He played the bowl game. But I know what you mean, Breakaway 34. Appreciate you for being here. But yeah, he's not a true freshman. He's a redshirt freshman. So, I mean, you can start a true freshman, but at Alabama, most times Bama doesn't do that. That doesn't normally happen. Like Tua didn't play immediately. You had Hurts, and then then he supplanted him eventually. Oh, you're good, Breakaway 34. I forget it. That's why I asked Jackson, is Milroe have another year? I can't even remember. So you're good. If Jackson Arnold did not play in that bowl game, if he did not play in that bowl game last year, I would not even remember that either. You're good. I appreciate it, Breakaway. But yeah, Jackson Arnold to me was not that impressive in that bowl game last year. And when Dylan Gabriel left, I'm like, man, Oklahoma's in bad shape. But the thing is, they have not had a good season. I mean, Jackson Arnold got benched this year for Hawkins. Now Arnold's back. And imagine back 10 years ago, Jackson, when Alabama didn't let Leonard Fournette even have 20 rushing yards. But yet Alabama's letting Jackson Arnold and they're allowing the Oklahoma running back to both have over 100 rushing yards.
One question I wanted to ask, this is about Oklahoma's head coach, Brent Venables.
Oh, he saved his job now. Everybody, I mean, come on. I mean, we're doing this with everybody.
Well, the 2024 Oklahoma season, do you think it's much similar to the 2010 Clemson season? Because back in 2010, Clemson went 6-6. Everybody back then was like, fire Dabo. And the AD was like, nah, I want stability. Let's stick with him. And I'm not saying Brent Venables is like Dabo, but it's a good comparison because he did work for him from 2012 to 2021. Is this situation at Oklahoma for Brent Venables much similar to Dabo Swinney in 2010?
The only difference that I see between the two situations, because they are similar. That's a good point, Jackson. The only difference I see is that when Dabo took over Clemson was not good.
Mm-hmm.
Brent Venables takes over Oklahoma, they were good. And they're worse now. That's the problem that Venables faces. I mean, you had Stoops, you had Lincoln Riley, and they were competing for championships. Even though under Lincoln Riley, they would make the playoff and get destroyed every time. But they were still competing for championship. Now they're just not even entertaining, except tonight. They're not that good on either side of the ball, defense or offense. They're just average, and their record reflects that. I mean, I don't know. I just think the level of roller coaster rides that we've had this year with college football coaches and their hot seats is hilarious, though. It reflects the inconsistent nature of these teams and the amount of effort we're seeing game in and game out from teams being inconsistent. Because, like I said, throughout this season, other than Mike Norvell, who went from the beginning of the season, he was all great, he's fantastic, to now he's in the gutter, and can he fix it? Other than him, all the other guys that are on the hot seat, and I'm talking about at the beginning of the season were on the hot seat. Like I said, Mike Norvell wasn't. It all tanked during the season. But Billy Napier, Neil Brown, Dave Aranda, Sam Pittman, Beamer, all these guys. It goes on, Hugh Freeze. Brent Venables, all of these coaches, and then you throw more in there. During this season, at one point, it looked like they were done. It looked like they were done. History. They were going to get fired when this season was over. And then they've saved their job with 1 win or 2 wins or whatever. Are any of them going to get fired? That's what's hilarious. Are any of them going to get fired? There is a chance that none of them get fired. Now, that's probably not likely. There's most likely somebody's getting fired.
Nobody's going to fire Shane Beamer. And
no, Beamer's off the list.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
I remember where I said then, where I was like, if South Carolina sticks with Shane Beamer, they can have a beautiful future together. I remember saying that. And I say it now. You know, it's like, stick with Beamer, you're good to go with them. And I've got a good feeling if Oklahoma can have stability, they'll be good to go. I think if Alabama can figure out what's wrong, we fix what's wrong, we get rid of the problem that we're having, we can be good to go for 2025 and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really hoping this season is not a regular occurrence in Tuscaloosa.
Absolutely, because if it is, I mean, fans are going to lose their minds. I mean, they do not want to become mediocre. That is the fear that we all had when Saban retired. And I will say, the only reason I threw Beamer in there and all those other coaches was because at the beginning of the season he was on the hot seat, and after that crummy performance against Old Dominion, I remember people saying he's done. So that's why I threw him in there. He still counts. He's safe now. But not at the beginning of the season, he wasn't. He was not safe. And that's what I'm saying with all these coaches. All of these coaches have had games this year at some point where it looked like they were done. They had no chance of turning their program around, their season around, whatever. And all of these guys at one point in the season have had a game where it's like they're safe. Hugh Freeze has moved up the list from like he was kind of warm to burning hot to now this game. They beat A&M. He's good. Or if they beat Alabama next week, he's a bowl game. Really? So 6-6 is now okay for Auburn? I thought that was the whole reason he got rid of Gus Malzahn and got rid of Ron Harsin.
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to be like a regular occurrence.
I know that, but how are they going to do better though? Is the point? Like, how are they going to do any better when the SEC is loaded? You got all these teams that are better than them. That even though they're inconsistent and maybe Auburn can sneak up on one of them one night, it doesn't mean that they're going to be good either. Somebody's got to lose. I mean, the SEC, you look at a lot of the records, there's just a whole lot of average in there. I mean, there's a lot of teams that have won like 8 games, but there's a whole lot of like 5-5s and 6-4s and junk. There's a lot of average teams in the SEC this year.
True.
It's just beating up on each other. That's kind of what happens when you put a lot of good football teams together. They're going to beat up on each other. It's the way the NFL works. That's why you don't see a lot of teams going 15-0, 16-0 or whatever. It just doesn't work. You're going to lose games. But I mean, do you think any of those coaches get fired though? Like any of the big name coaches? Do any of them get fired?
All depends on the buyout. All depends on the buyout, and depending on the team as well.
Well, Neil Brown, if you're going off the buyout, Neil Brown should be easily fired. He doesn't even have that big of a buyout. But West Virginia don't get rid of him. They just keep him. And it's like they just keep winning. It's like, if he wins this game, he's safe. Guess what? He wins that game. And then the next game, if he wins this game, he has a little more. Well, then he loses that game. He's back on the brink. The next game, he wins that. That's what he does. Literally, Neil Brown is like Clay Helton, but at a worse program. Clay Helton just survived forever because when people were at the brink, right? People were at the brink with Clay Helton. He would win that game. That game he had to have to save his job. And then he would lose the very next game. That's when Neil Brown is. You got to win this game, Neil Brown, or we're done with you. He won. He saved his job. Next game loses.
And down south Down South Bastion says problem is at quarterback and OC.
Well, I don't think Nick Sheridan's a good offensive coordinator in the first place. I mean, I haven't said this a lot this year. I probably should have said it more. I mean, everybody's been talking about DeBoer, so it's kind of hard to talk about it. But since I agree, appreciate you being here down south. But yes, Nick Sheridan, when he was at Indiana, was not great. That offensive coordinator. He was not that great. He was a better tight ends coach. And when he was at Washington, he was a tight ends coach again for Washington with Kalen DeBoer. When he was at Indiana, he was a tight ends coach, but then he got upgraded by Tom Allen after Kalen DeBoer left Indiana for the Fresno State job to be the offensive coordinator. Nick Sheridan did not do a good job at offensive coordinator. I don't think Nick Sheridan's a great offensive coordinator. So that probably is a major issue. That probably Kalen DeBoer needs to either fire Nick Sheridan and get rid of him as offensive coordinator or put him back at tight ends coach. He is a pretty solid tight ends coach. Nick Sheridan is kind of like Brian Ferentz. He's better than Brian Ferentz because everybody is. But the thing is, though, is that Brian Ferentz was a decent offensive line coach. There was nothing wrong with his coaching ability at O-line. He could not coach an entire offense, though, which Kurt Ferentz, because nepotism, just would not fix that problem and left him at OC when he should have left him at O-line coach. Nick Sheridan is a better tight ends coach. That's just my opinion. He's a better tight ends coach, not a great offensive coordinator. So I absolutely agree with your comment down south. 110%. Got to fix that problem. QB, though, that probably is still more the OC because Jalen Milroe last year was good with different coordinators, different coaches, different play calling. This year, he's regressed in a lot of areas. I mean, he's still going to run, but against LSU, ran all over LSU. Why? Because LSU sucks at quarterback run defense, whereas Oklahoma didn't allow Milroe to do that. They didn't allow him to escape pressure. So, I mean, I don't really think the problem is necessarily all Milroe. Milroe has regressed some, but I think more of it's the play calling. But see, that's not going to matter, though, because Milroe's not going to be back next year.
Well,
yeah.
Well, and the reason why Sheridan got hired was because the fact Ryan Grubb left for the Seahawks. So that really put us in a pinch. And
well, I know why he hired Nick Sheridan. I agree. And I knew about Ryan Grubb turning down the job. It was a big deal. I remember that. You're 110% right, Jackson, on that. If Ryan Grubb didn't go to the Seahawks, then obviously Kalen DeBoer would have hired him. I mean, that made perfect sense. Absolutely. When he turned it down, went to Seahawks, he had to go with the second best option in a short time.
True.
But Nick Sheridan just isn't it. And if Kalen DeBoer wants to keep his job, he's not going to be like Kirk Ferentz where, you can just have a crummy offensive coordinator for years and it's okay because Alabama's not Iowa. So he's going to have to fix that problem.
I think Kalen DeBoer can fix it. I believe he's that kind of guy that will fix the problem. He's not going to be like Kirk Ferentz and just be like, well, I'm just going to bury my head in the sand, hope everything works out. I don't think he's that kind of guy because, like, we've seen the work ethic they put in at Fresno and he put in at Washington. He's going to do that same thing at Alabama. And I get it. The first year has been sucky, but I believe that the second year will be a heck of a lot better. And I've got a great feeling about the future. I mean, and that's the thing about being down is the way to go from being down is up.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing that is so frustrating, though, is if you just erase this game, then the first season wasn't sucky overall. I mean, the Vandy game is really hard to overlook, but you could because of Georgia and LSU. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
But this game, it just erases all of it. None of that even matters. The Georgia game doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant at this point, unfortunately. It doesn't matter anymore because at Alabama, the success is determined on whether you win titles or not. I mean, it's just when you're at Iowa or you're at Wisconsin or you're at North Carolina or you're at, whatever, TCU, you don't have to do that. But at Alabama, you have to win titles or be able to compete for them every year. And the fact that Alabama is now eliminated from the playoffs, that's what makes this year, like you said, sucky and not good. But I agree. I think it is awesome that to when you're down, the only way you can go is up. It is and it's a fantastic opportunity to turn things around. But the problem is that when you're Bama and you've had Nick Saban and you've been great for 15 consecutive years in a row without basically ever having a down season, that's what makes this season so bad and a tough pill to swallow for fans. Me and you had a feeling that they were going to be worse, but we still had them going 10-2, and they should have gone 10-2 this year.
Yeah.
They should have gone 10-2. I had them losing to LSU on the road and Georgia. They won both those games. That's what's so hilarious. It's funny. I had them losing 2 games, and the 2 games I had them losing to, they won.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about in the preseason, obviously. Like,
right.
I picked Alabama to beat LSU when they played because now. But at the beginning of the season, I picked Alabama to lose to LSU.
I still get mad about my Big 12 title prediction from the preseason. But again, that's another time for another
Kansas
day.
isn't even bad, Jackson. That's the funny thing. Kansas is not a bad football team. They're the first team. I don't know if you saw that stat, but they're the first team to have a losing record and winning 3 ranked games in a row. I saw that stat, and it's like, you know what? Jackson's vindicated. I don't care that Kansas is under 500. Jackson is correct. And I had them going like 8-4 too. So, you know what? I thought they were going to be good. They're not bad. They just blew tons of games. Most of their losses are about 1 score. The UNLV game, the Kansas State game, tons of games. They barely lost. So, I mean, they're a better football team than people are giving them credit for. And Jalen Daniels is getting it fixed. He's turning it around. So, your prediction was wrong. And me having them go 8-4 was wrong. But not a bad football team. Lance Leipold still has that program doing things. It's just ugly record, but they're not bad.
But you know what's not ugly? You know what is really beautiful? Becoming a channel member of Alabama The Voice of College Football, where for $2.99 a month, you can become a Crimson Faithful member, and in return, you get a loyalty badge next to your name in the chat and in the comments. And you can pick out any old emoji you want, like the Alabama elephant, the number 1 finger, the Saban hat, and you get a member shout out. And for $4.99 a month, you get priority replies to comments and access monthly hangouts with me, Jeffrey, and Johnny, of course. And finally, $9.99 a month, you can become a Bear Bryant legend. And in return, you can connect on social media with us. And you can give out any old content requests you want. More recruiting news. You want more of our takes. You want an interview with anybody. Pick out anybody. Anybody. And we will make sure we fulfill your content request. Because your investment for $9.99 a month is important to us as it is to you. We will make sure to fulfill your request as much as possible. We will fulfill nor rain, nor sleet, nor snow. And as much as I hate cold weather, I will go out in the freaking most cold of weather of all to fulfill. I'll make sure that we will fulfill that request. We will fulfill it. I promise you.
Like climbing Mount Everest. You think you can do that, man?
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. See, and that's what we needed to see tonight from Alabama. Effort like climbing Mount Everest. If me and you are going to do it, Jackson, they needed to do it as well. So maybe our efforts will rub off on them, right? Next week.
There we go.
Absolutely. I agree with Jackson there. We got a lot of great content coming to Alabama with The Voice of College Football. You're not going to want to miss it at all, and definitely appreciate if you guys become a member, and you're not going to regret if you do.
And we got the Voice of College Football X account where you can have top-notch discussion, debate, and analysis with no off-season. Oh, well, you know, March Live. There we go. Crossover night. Oh, our friends at Oklahoma The Voice of College Football on. Oh, we're on as well. We're breaking a 4th wall inside a 16th wall inside a 64th wall. Oh, man. Are we going to see this happen tonight? Nah, I'm not going to put Jeffrey through that. He suffered enough. Texas A&M, Auburn. Oh, man. And there's our friends at Georgia at the Voice College Football, Matt Green. Tune in to see what he's got. Oh, well, you know, our buddy Jeffrey at Only Tall Sports hosting the Indiana Postgame show. Let's get Indiana at the Voice College Football to 1,000. Matter of fact, let's get all the channels rolling, man. Let's get them all to 10,000. Let's get
whether the team wins or loses. We're here to discuss Alabama. I'm discussing Indiana as well. Tough day of college football, and it doesn't seem like it's going to make any more sense in the future next week and beyond. Honestly, it just seems like wacky scenarios are going to keep happening. Teams are so inconsistent. On the one hand, it's fun seeing upsets, but when it happens to your team, it stings.
And of course, let's also check out Ole Miss at the Voice College Football, where our friends Leanne Herring and Ruby Dwyer set for this week, which is on Tuesday, where they host Ole Miss Rebels Live. And let's get Ole Miss at the Voice College Football to 1,000 subs. Let's get it rocking and rolling there. And, you know, you don't have to be an Ole Miss fan. You really don't have to be. You can be any fan of any team you want to be. Just come on in, subscribe to the channel, and better yet, you can tell Ole Miss how you're better and then this, that, and the other, whatever. Or better yet, you can tell them how excited you are to play them in the future. In a future playoff game. Because I don't think we're playing them next year, unfortunately. I missed that game already.
Yeah, me too.
And, of course, you can tune in on Crimson Tide Live on your favorite audio platform on Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Tune in to tell your friends and family and the cashiers at Publix about the magic we're creating at Alabama at the Voice College Football. You're not going to want to miss the magic we're all making. And I can tell you right now, it's going to be a wild ride, including Monday's edition of Crimson Tide Life, where it's going to be a little sad, but we're going to be happy just for you guys. We're going to be really happy and you're going to be really excited about these guests we're going to be having. For Hate Week, Auburn Week, Monday afternoon, we'll be having the Auburn equivalent of Corey Brada, Kyle Loomis from E2C Network, and the editor of Touchdown Alabama himself, and a friend of the Voice of College Football Network. And he has been featured on the Paul Feinbaum Show for the last 5 to 6 years, Stephen M. Smith. As Stephen M. Smith and Kyle Loomis, Stephen M. Smith will be joining us, Johnny and I, to discuss our take on what happened. What happened with Alabama, Oklahoma, the 2024 season. And we're going to discuss the 2024 Iron Bowl. And he's going to discuss his top 5 all-time Iron Bowl matchups in his lifetime. Or, you know, maybe not in his lifetime. Top 5 Iron Bowls in the history of the Iron Bowl. Same with Kyle Loomis. He's going to give us his take on the 2024 Auburn season, the keys to victory against Alabama. He's going to give us everything involving the Auburn Tigers and his top 5 Iron Bowls of all time. And and I know Johnny and I will, and spoiler alert, one of my favorite Iron Bowls was the resumption of the rivalry in 1948. But I'm not telling you until Monday afternoon. And of course, Wednesday, you see these pretty little faces on the Hate Week edition of the Ocho of the call-in show.
It's going to be fun, absolutely. Despite the loss, still fun talking Alabama football. Hopefully they get it together for next week, because I do not want to see back-to-back low-effort games, especially in the Iron Bowl. Just for pride at this point. It doesn't matter. You got to show effort.
Don't make this man blow a casket now. Don't do that.
Yeah, you don't want to be blowing a gasket or putting us in a casket. You don't want that happening.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. And one more thing before we go. What magic have you got going on in this weekend and next week?
Oh, definitely. Appreciate it, Jackson. On next week, should be able, hopefully, with Will and D on Only Talk Sports, my YouTube channel where I talk college football, college basketball, NFL, and NBA every single day, or at least I try to. And me and Will and D will be talking college football for Hate Week, as everybody likes to call it around here. Rivalry Week, however you like to call it. Doesn't matter, but me and Will will be talking about that over at Only Talk Sports. So definitely would appreciate if you guys check out my YouTube channel and go sub over there if you haven't already. And also Tuesday nights, 7 o'clock Eastern time, the Indiana, the voice of college football. Like Jackson said, trying to get the subs up over there. Every week talking about the Indiana Hoosiers, even though they just lost again. You know, it's still a fantastic season for Indiana, still a dream season, and can't wait to talk about the Purdue game coming up next week. And obviously, like Jackson said, usually Thursday nights, but this week Wednesday because of Thanksgiving. The Crimson Tide Call-In show as well to talk about Alabama and hear your takes and calls. So definitely going to be a lot of fun. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, and definitely appreciate if you guys go check out different shows that I do.
And you can check me out on Jackson Johnson 979, where I'll be cooking up some magic with Austin at Sports Talk with Austin, discussing the latest takeaways on not just what happened with Alabama, Oklahoma, but on Florida Ole Miss on the final whistle. And Will and I have resumed the college basketball recap preview show, which we are going to come up with a new name for it. No worries there. And it's going to be a wild ride. And for more updates on what I'm doing on Alabama with the Voice of College Football and what I'm doing on the Jacksonian and what I'm doing on my personal channel as well, check me out on X at JacksonVOCFB and on Jackson Johnson 543 908. And with that, we wish you all a good night. Sleep well, stay safe, stay warm. It's cold out. Stay away from the cold weather. Like, comment, subscribe. Click on that notification bell so you never miss another video. Let's beat the Texas channel to 3,000, and we'll catch you soon.
And roll Tide.
Roll Tide.